welcome to the mill for another episode of Chaotic Clarity. My name is Freya. I'm joined today, as always, by my partner in crime,
Dawn.
and today, Dawn, we are going to be talking about anxiety.
We are.
I'm going to talk about lots of different things about anxiety, what it is, how it presents differently in different people, and we're also going to hopefully give people some management strategies to help overcome those moments of anxiety in their lives. But we are first going to share our chaotic clarity moment of the week. I love Dawn's because they're usually involving animals, and I feel like today's going to be no different.
Mm-hmm. So my chaotic moment recently, Freya, thank you for bringing it up, was I bought 3 alpacas. Yeah, I've done it. I didn't even realise that I needed 3 alpacas. I was actually looking for a miniature Dexter cow, like a little cow.
Oh, yeah.
And then by accident, I bought 3 alpacas. I can't wait. We don't get them until the end of this week. I'm so excited. Yeah, so that's my chaotic moment this week. I couldn't tell you one clarity though, to be honest. Maybe it's, hang on. Oh yeah, no, it's because I've got the fencing done for the sheep. So that's actually quite, clear and organised of me, is that I've bought alpacas after I finished the fencing, because that's not normally what I would do. I would just do it before and worry about that after.
There you go. Are they boy or girl alpacas?
They are all girls.
Have they got names yet?
They have their names. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to change them. Like, do alpacas know their names?
I don't know.
I've had mixed responses from people I know. Some people say you can't change their name, they'll know it. And then other people have said, oh, they're alpacas, they won't know it.
I have no idea.
No,
but stay tuned. There'll be more alpaca stories coming on the pod, no doubt.
Yes, there will. What's yours, Freya?
So mine is, I suppose, animal adjacent. It's not animal specifically related, but so I was, as you do sometimes, scrolling through kind of Instagram or different things and started to see pictures of ponds and wildlife and things like, how easy it is to make a pond in your garden. So I said to my husband, I think we should have a pond. So my chaotic moment is the fact that my husband has now started creating a pond. We have no experience or knowledge about how to do this other than, kind of watching a few YouTube videos, thinking about we probably need to kind of have some kind of hole. So yeah, that you can fill with water. But yeah, I think it's a chaotic moment of, I've seen this will be amazing. This will be super easy to do. And then the clarity moment of, actually, this is quite difficult. And we've got quite a rocky garden. So, yeah, it's going to be an exciting potential project. So I'm looking forward to it being finished. I have no idea where. We're kind of in that mid stage now where we started and it's too late to turn back. We're right in the middle of chaos. And I'm looking forward to the clarity of at the end when I can have my beautiful pond with a little waterfall, kind of creating a lovely peaceful moment for us.
The sound of music. Oh, that will be so worth it.
It will, yeah. So that's lovely. So I think both of us are actually quite chaotic this week, and we haven't quite got to the clarity yet. But that's okay. That's life. That's sometimes how it rolls. Sometimes, maybe one week we'll just have a clarity week.
Yeah. Do you think? Because I don't.
No, I don't. No. So, Dawn, today we are talking about anxiety. And this was one that was requested by one of our listeners. So we want to make sure that we are, responding to you guys. So I think for me, one of the reasons anxiety is really important to talk about is because it impacts everybody. So regardless if you are neurodivergent, neurotypical, everybody knows what it's like to feel anxious. At all different levels as well. We've all had times where a little bit of anxiety is normal. If you're going for a job interview, you're meeting somebody for the first time, I don't know, there's lots of things that provoke sort of that mild low-level anxiety that we all know and we all experience. But actually, there's something different about having that quite intense, panicky anxiety that can be quite, debilitating and overwhelming for some people. And we'll be talking a little bit about both of those things today. So that's kind of where we wanted to kind of, pitch this as. And I suppose what we wanted to think about is all the different ways that, anxiety can impact people and why maybe neurodivergent people maybe experience more anxiety than neurotypical people. Don't know if you've got some experience, like personal experiences that, do you ever experience anxiety? I know I do.
Yes, I most definitely experience anxiety, unfortunately. And weirdly, I've only recognised this probably about 13 years ago, 14 years ago. I didn't realise it was anxiety until a doctor told me.
Yeah.
I just thought that that's what everybody had, that's what everybody felt, or,
Yeah.
you know, like, so yeah, that was really interesting. But yeah, lots of, as a neurodiverse female, the most random things make me anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't walk into a room first. Like, I don't know, are these like typical ones? I don't know. Or...
I was going to say they're your ones, so
yeah,
you know they're valid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like going out, socializing, that makes me highly anxious, so I just try not to do it. Lots of people, new things. Yeah, just lots of things, really.
Lots of things, yeah. And I think again, I suppose one of the things that you've hit on there is that you know, two of those things which would maybe make it more likely for a neurodivergent person to experience anxiety is that actually, you know, those social experiences. So, you know, if you're having to kind of navigate social interactions, either through an ADHD brain of being like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to focus and concentrate. If they think I'm not focusing? What if they think I don't care? Am I, you know, paying enough attention? All of those things. What if I miss something? To the autistic kind of brain who's going, am I kind of smiling at the right time? Am I going to have to make eye contact? Am I going to have to, you know, fake that awful social chit chat? You know, all of those experiences. So, you know, that as a neurodivergent person, when you approach a social situation, that's kind of going to make you more likely to feel anxious and uncomfortable. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So if I tell you a little bit about what anxiety actually is done. So probably you know a little bit of this already, but maybe our listeners might not. So when we are anxious, it isn't just something that happens in our brain. It's not just a kind of a thought that happens. It actually is a whole physiological response that kind of goes through our whole body. So when we are anxious, you know, there is a trigger. So whenever I explain this to children and a lot of adults, actually, I always talk about it as, you know, it's a really old evolutionary response. So it's been with, you know, humans for pretty much as long as we've been humans.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really useful thing. If we didn't have this response, we'd probably been dead years and years ago. So if you think about, you know, there's a trigger that makes you anxious. So I used to always describe this as a dinosaur and a caveman until an autistic child once told me that those two didn't coexist and the Flintstones was just a load of rubbish. So since then I now use a saber-toothed tiger, which is more historically accurate.
Yeah,
so if you imagine you're a person or a cave person and a saber-toothed tiger jumps out at you, you've got sort of two real big choices that you can do. You can either try to fight it or you can try to run away from it as quick as you can. So that fight or flight response. And when that fight or flight response kicks off in our nervous system, that kind of like triggers automatic things around our body that we have no control over. So for example, your pupils dilate. So your pupils get bigger in order for you to see more things. So if you're going to be running away, you can see the sort of the ground in front of you to run as quick as you can. Or if you're going to be fighting, to see as much of your opponent as you can. Your sweat glands on your body start to open so you can sweat. So you're going to keep your body cool. Again, useful if you're fighting or running away. Your muscles get really tense. Again, useful if you're fighting or running away. Your lungs start to work quicker, so you can get the blood from your heart out to the muscles. You might also notice two things. So you might also notice that your brain goes a little bit kind of like fuzzy, and that's because there's less blood going to your brain and more blood going to your muscles. And you might notice kind of like butterflies where your blood isn't going to your brain or your tummy, so it's going to your muscles, so your tummy is going to be feeling a little bit different as well. So there's loads of them. I could go on, there's so many more physiological responses, but those are some of the ones that we all kind of think about when we get anxious. Our muscles get tense, we get sweaty palms, we kind of feel a little bit dizzy and kind of a bit weird and a bit spacey, and we get those kind of weird butterflies in our feelings, and we get our heart palpitations. You know, our heart is trying to pump that blood as quick to our muscles as we can. And of course, that's when we saw a saber-toothed tiger. So if we did fight the tiger, we've got a good chance of beating it. Or if we ran away, we've got a good chance of surviving. So that kind of automatic response would have been really useful. However, nowadays we don't have saber-toothed tigers, but we do have things that cause us to have that same anxiety response. Do any of those sort of feelings, Dawn, that kind of like are intense for you, that you experience? I know for me, when I'm anxious, my biggest thing is a tummy ache and a kind of like that heart palpitations. What about you?
Yeah, same. I do struggle with my tummy at night time. If I've got something big on the next day, or if I'm on a holiday or Christmas or a birthday or anything like that, a couple of nights before, you won't find me in bed. I'll be on the bathroom floor because I just have to sleep on the bathroom floor. My belly, yeah, and then rapid heartbeat. Oh, yeah. All of it really.
Mm-hmm.
Dizziness is very common with me.
Yeah.
Very common.
And you won't be able to think straight as well, which I always think is
No.
kind of, you've got less blood going to your brain, so that stops you kind of being able to think properly. And
Yes.
sometimes when you're really anxious, that's the time when you really need to be able to think with that more clarity.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to focus on like talking yourself out of being anxious, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's also really important to talk about is anxiety doesn't look the same in everybody.
No.
So you and I might look quite different if we were appearing anxious. One of us might be masking quite heavily, the other one might be having more of a visual meltdown. There's lots of different ways. So don't think about, if we're thinking about those different presentations. I know you were kind of talking about that today before we were, in our kind of prep. So go on, tell us about some of the things that you were thinking about when you were thinking about those different presentations that, people don't always understand or interpret as anxiety.
Yeah, so I think obviously in children more, meltdowns.
Yeah.
For anyone who has neurodivergent children, the meltdowns are very real, and that, can be misinterpreted. Is that the right word? Did I say that right? It sounded wrong.
I think it might be just misinterpreted.
Misinterpreted. Did I just make a new word?
I liked it. I think we should go with it.
Yeah, I think we're going to go with it. So I think it can be misinterpreted. When obviously children can get anxious, it can come out as meltdowns, can't it?
It can, yeah.
Because children don't understand that they're anxious or they're worried about something, and then something can just tip them off the edge and boom, yeah, meltdowns. And then you've obviously got the demand avoidance as well.
Yeah.
That's quite a common one, isn't it? I suppose in adults as well, or is it more children, Freya, would you say that things like this are?
I think you might see it, but to a lesser extent. So it might be it might be the sort of a similar internal reaction, but for an adult, maybe it's not sort of as acceptable to have a full-blown meltdown. But you might see it present as kind of like a bit of a, an angry outburst.
Yeah.
Or, someone who's appearing to be particularly difficult. I think about demand avoidance. You might see it as somebody who's kind of being more, reluctant to try something new. Oh, go on, give it a go. No, I'm not doing it. Who comes off more sort of standoffish.
Yeah.
And then we can also see it in adults as well as sort of what we'd call that fawn response. So that fawn response is more around that kind of people pleasing. So you're feeling really anxious in a situation. You don't know what to do, you don't quite know what to say, and someone says, oh, do you want to do this? You really don't want to do it, but you say yes, because that's an easier way of helping that anxiety go down, because it's more like sort of fitting in and kind of like, I suppose pleasing the people that you're with rather than actually doing what you want to do.
Yeah. So an example for me as well is when I pick my child up from school, and if they've been people pleasing and masking all day, I love that word, they come home and, well, there's meltdowns.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a demand avoidance as well, isn't it? And like almost like a build up of anxiety, because I know like one of my 3 children really struggles with school, and bless her, she still goes. And she has to just put a face on and mask all day. And then, like I know a lot of people that have children the same, and they really struggle with their children coming out of school, and they don't understand why their child's doing it. And obviously once it's explained, it's like, oh my gosh. But it can come across, especially to maybe, like older people, if they see a child having a meltdown in public. I've had comments said to me of, oh, they just need a good hiding, and awful things like that. And maybe it's a generational thing, I don't know, but yeah, it's awful. It's heartbreaking, really, but it is just a form of anxiety that child can't communicate maybe in that moment.
Yeah, definitely. And if you think about, a child that feels anxious in school, a school day is a long day.
Yeah.
So they've probably had, during that day, there've been times where they've maybe had a little bit less anxiety because maybe they were on their own for a little bit. They could get some space. But then, oh no, the teacher was asking me something and I've got to say it out loud in front of the class. That could spike their anxiety again. Oh, it could be that, is anyone going to play with me at lunchtime? For me, people, if you've listened to the podcast, you know about my eating issues as a child. But lunchtimes was one of the most anxious moments of school for me, particularly primary school, because I was so frightened about what potentially there would be for lunch that I would then have to eat, that I would just be so anxious, and that would be really overwhelming. But you can see how lots of different people have these kind of things. So by the time they get home, those young people are exhausted. They've had to ride that adrenaline of feeling anxious all day. And it's almost like a bottle of pop. So if you imagine you've got a bottle of Coke, and every sort of anxiety provoking thing is a good shake of that Coke.
Yeah.
As soon as you get that child home and it's their safe environment, you're taking the lid off and you're going to have a meltdown because they've kept the lid on it all day. And I think, sometimes, people just say, oh, they just, you just need to be firmer with them, or they need this, or they need that. Actually, what people need in that situation is a real, is real understanding and kindness, time, space. So you can kind of think about and helping them to understand what that anxiety feeling is. That sometimes, anxiety is one of the most intense feelings, especially panic. And it almost feels ridiculous to think that it won't harm us when we're actually in it, because it feels so overwhelming and so intense. And it is such a physiological response as well that we have no control of. So we always talk about strategies, because, we've talked a little bit about what causes that anxiety and what that might look like. And I think it's really important for us to think about and spend a lot of time today thinking about, okay, well, if you are experiencing anxiety, there are lots of different things that you can do. And Dawn and I have got a whole list of things to talk to you about today. And hopefully you can give them a go if you are having an anxious moment. And let us know in the comments if it is helpful for you. Which ones you like, which ones you don't like. So, Dawn, what's one of your go-to anxiety management strategies when you're feeling overwhelmed? What do you do?
So, Freya, I tend to do sometimes all of them at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
Because I don't have time to be sitting and I'm just like, I'm anxious. I'm about to have a panic attack. I need to stop this now because I need to get on with work, or I need to pick the kids up. So maybe that's probably not working for me. That's probably why. But my favourite things are breathing. And I know it's such a cliche, isn't it? They go, oh, breathing, how powerful is breathing? But breathing is everything. But sometimes I do that whilst on my phone, and it will be something lovely, and it will be something garden, something inspirational, like, oh, there's a new seed out, a new type of tomato.
Lovely.
So I'll do the deep breathing, but I will do it with a visual as well, and I find that can help me. And even in work, I can just pop to the toilet for 5 minutes, pretend I need a wee, sit on the toilet, normally messaging you, sit there and just do some deep breathing and some visual on the phone. I know that's probably, would you say that's a distraction technique? I don't know, but that's kind of works for me.
I think that's a really good idea. I love that you've combined two things there together. So the breathing works, and I love that you said sometimes people do underestimate the importance of breathing as a skill and as anxiety management, but it works so well. And it works so well for a couple of reasons. One, you've always got your lungs with you. You can do it wherever you are. But two, it really, plays to that physiological response. So again, coming back to if I'm being chased by a saber-toothed tiger and that whole response is going on in my body, and my body's going, there's in danger, you're in danger, you need to kind of, flood your muscles with blood, you need to have open pupils, you need to go to the toilet, you need to do all of these things. So if my body is sending all of those messages, if I start panic breathing like that, my brain is going, yes, I do need to panic. Oh my goodness, I do need to panic. There is danger. If I start doing what you're saying is slowing down my breathing and doing some purposeful breathing techniques, and we're going to go through 3 breathing techniques today for people. But if you start doing those breathing techniques, you're tricking your body into and helping your body understand that everything's fine. So you're using that physiological response to kind of almost reverse itself. So what's the thing, Dawn, that you and I would do At the end of a long day, when you plump down on a sofa, what do? You go, okay?
Yeah.
And that's what our
Sigh.
body does. Our bodies sigh when we
Mm.
know we're safe, we're comfortable, there is no danger present. So a lot of the time you can do a breathing technique that is, is showing that sigh. So when you start doing that slow breathing, what your breathing is telling the rest of your body is,
You're safe.
everything is okay. Yeah, you are safe. There isn't a saber-toothed tiger chasing you. There isn't some sort of impending doom that is going to be awful. So you can kind of trick your body. Now, once your body starts calming down, then you can start doing some of the things. Now, what I love that you added that in is, rather than your brain sort of sometimes, which all our brains do, is spiraling down that negative, anxious thought. Well, what about this? 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 What you started to do with the scrolling and the distraction is kind of just stop your brain dead where it's going. It's go, let's get off that track and let's get onto this track.
Yeah, brakes are on.
Whilst I do the breathing. So yeah, I think there's some really lovely techniques, and I love that you combine them, because that will make them equally as powerful. And I love that you do them in the loo. I think that's, some people always think, they say to me, oh, I can't just get, do my breathing exercises here and there because people think I'm weird if I'm doing them. Go to the bathroom, spend that time on your own, shut that door, do that. That's a time that you can do. There are obviously other times when you're at home, or you're other places where you can get the time on your own, but going to the bathroom and doing that kind of like breathing and reset is such a good technique.
And I think if you do the breathing, you can do it subtly where nobody would notice. So I think many times I've been on a train on my own going to work, and it's absolutely packed and I'm getting panicky, and I think, oh, just bloody breathe, Dawn. And actually you can do it.
You can do
You
it
don't have
very,
to do the noises. You don't have to. You can do it without anybody noticing, even if it's just the counting of the breathing in and the counting of the breathing out.
Yeah. So that's one of the strategies that we're going to actually talk about today, Dawn, is the counting.
Sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. No, I love that you brought it up. It's wonderful. So one of the things that I really love is 7-11 breathing. One, it's easy to remember. 7 rhymes with 11. And what you do is it's continually sort of recreating that sigh experience. So you breathe in for the count of 7. And then you breathe out for 11. Yeah. And sometimes
that was so lovely.
sometimes it can take people a bit of time to practice that. But what I say to people is, if you're doing it, with 4 and then 8, or you're doing a bit, as long as that out breath is significantly longer than the in breath, because that's what you're wanting to create. You're wanting to create that kind of long exhale that helps you to calm down. So yeah, thinking about it, doing 7 in, 11 out, can doing that. And again, you can do that really, I suppose, animatedly if you're on your own, but you can also do that really, really calmly. I've done that before. I've gone to do like maybe a talk in front of people. I've done it before, like job interviews, where you can just kind of breathe, quietly into yourself, counting to 7, and then that really long, slow, controlled exhale to help that physiological response just kind of calm down, so you can bring.
There's a lovely standing yoga as well. So if you coupled the breathing with it, it's just reminded me when you said job interviews. When I've gone for job interviews, there's a stand where you stand like this and you open your heart and your chest and you do the breathing.
Lovely.
And it brings power.
Fantastic. What another lovely strategy there, though. So we've kind of got distraction. We've got a physical strategy of actually opening up our bodies. We've got our breathing. And we're going to talk a little bit more, but I'm going to stick with us on breathing at the moment because it is so important. And the other one, have you come across square breathing, Dawn?
Yes.
Go on. Do you want to talk us through some square breathing?
Okay, Freya.
Because I did the 7-11.
So the square breathing it's normally on the count of 4. So we breathe in for 4, we breathe out for 4, we breathe in for 4, and we breathe out for 4. For people who aren't watching my finger on our YouTube channel, by the way, I'm drawing a square with my finger to draw, obviously. So one side up is in for 4, one side across is out 4, one side down is in for 4, one side across the bottom is out for 4. That's probably the most, the one that I've been told about the most, more than the 7-Eleven. I actually prefer the 7-Eleven personally.
Yeah.
For me, the box doesn't do it.
So I think that's what's really important is you can try lots of different breathing techniques, and some you'll be like, oh, that one feels weird. That one I don't like. You can do ones where you hold your breath as well for a specific time, so you can kind of like count in for a certain number, hold, and then kind of let reduce and then hold again. So there's lots of different ways. And you were telling me about a new one as well, Dawn.
Oh, the 2 gasp.
The 2 gasp one, which I've not come across.
One. And again, for me, that doesn't particularly work. I have used it. But like you say, if we all know every technique and we all give it a go, there's going to be one for everyone, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
So yeah, the 2 gasp one. So you breathe in twice. I was just watching it, a YouTube guy doing it before, and then it's a long. So it's a double gasp, like quick through your nose, and then a slow outhale.
Right. Oh, I like that one. I'm going to give that one a go as well, Dawn.
Yeah.
But I think what I love as well about breathing is it is something, as I said, you've always got your lungs with you. But what I always say to people is also don't just wait until you're feeling anxious to do them.
Yeah.
You know, if it's like kind of saying, you know, if I said to you, Dawn, so tomorrow we're all going to run, you and I are going to run a marathon. We'd be like, we can't run a marathon. We've not done any training. You know, don't be ridiculous. We could perhaps walk one, but oh my goodness, we couldn't run a marathon. And I sort of think about that the same way as I think about breathing techniques. So if I'm suddenly in an anxious situation, my body and I start doing some deep breathing, it probably will work, but it won't work as well as if my body has practiced it.
Yeah.
If I've done the marathon training and I go to do the marathon, it's going to be so much easier if I've done the training. So if I've practiced my breath work when I'm calm and I'm chilled and I'm in a really good place, maybe it's when I'm doing yoga like you were doing, maybe it's in our greenhouses when we're looking at seeds. But if I do that breathing exercises and practice that regularly, when I start doing it when I'm panicky or anxious, my body knows what we're doing. It kind of knows the drill and it can kind of get to that much quicker.
Like a muscle memory. So it will understand what you're trying to,
Definitely. So breathing for me, I think it's one of those underestimated strategies, but is so useful. And you know, there's so many different ways you can do it. So if you know a different, our listeners out there, if you do know a different breathing technique that you use a lot and you really like and value, comment below, and we'd love to hear from you. So what other strategies, Dawn? What other anxiety management strategies are we gonna talk about today?
Focus and distraction I put, but that's, I think, the phone thing as well. I'm really good at distracting myself from.
So let's say you haven't got your phone with you, Dawn, or you're in an interview, you're going into a job interview, and it's not appropriate for you to have your phone out. Well, that
makes me feel anxious alone, not having my phone with me.
But what might you do? What other things do you do in your environment that you could use to help your anxiety?
So a good example, I was at a funeral recently, and obviously we can't go on our phones there. That's just rude. And it was very busy, the door shut, and I could feel myself getting anxious. I was thinking, why am I anxious? I was overthinking it, and then it started spiraling. I kept looking back at the door. I even worked out on the handle of the door how I would open it, because it looked like a complicated door, because I was going to run. Like we spoke about this.
So you had a flight.
I'm always a flight risk.
Yeah.
My husband will tell you. Where's Dawn? Oh, she's gone. Yeah. If I get anxious, I'm out of there.
You'd be running from that saber-toothed tiger.
Oh, I would. Yeah.
You would be surviving and running away.
I would. So I was looking back at the door and I was thinking, oh my goodness. And obviously I didn't want to go. I was there because I wanted to be there. So I kicked in and I thought, come on, brain, save me. So I started focusing on the pictures on the screen. I was focusing on the hair of the pictures on the screen and the eye colour and following the eyebrows, listening to the words, imagining their life as a child who they were talking about, really imagining the words. I was looking at the speaker, it was, I just had to really focus. And then all of a sudden, I could feel my heart rate started going down.
Brilliant.
And I thought, okay, we're there.
Yeah.
So that for me is probably the one that I have to do when I've got no phone, like you say.
Yeah.
So just your mind, I suppose, focusing.
That's a really good one. I love that because you're picking out things in your environment that you can really focus on. and help you sort of, kind of think about that, which then lowered your anxiety. Another technique which is really similar to that is sort of like the 5 technique of grounding, and you use your sort of senses for that. So you might say, if you're starting to, you might think, okay, I'm going to look around me. What are 5 things that I can see right now? What are 4 things that I might be able to touch? And what would their texture be like? What are 3 things I might be able to smell right now? What are 2 things that I can hear going on around me? And what is 1 thing I can taste, maybe? Taste sometimes is a bit of a tricky one to do. But again, you might have, some chewing gum in your pocket that you could have, or you might have a drink. But there's loads of things. So again, you could use those 5 senses to distract your brain around. So what are those things that you could do? So there's lots of different ways. So I love that as a strategy. Have you got any others that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Do you know what, as well, the big one is just talking kind to ourselves and telling myself it's anxiety, dawn. This is a feeling here to keep you alive. No one's here to hurt you. You are safe. You are safe. And I have to, once I remind myself that I am safe, I'm not going to die. No one's going to hurt me. I'm just sat in my toilet. Like, it's anxiety. It will pass. And actually, those words probably are the thing that calms it.
That is so empowering. Such an empowering statement, because you're sort of letting you're accepting and validating the experience. This is anxiety. Because I think sometimes we can kind of get a little bit caught up in almost like positive self-talk that feels positive that actually is negative. And by that I mean, oh, it's just anxiety, I just need to calm down, which isn't helpful. But what you've said is, actually, I'm acknowledging the anxiety, but I'm also telling myself I'm safe, and this will pass. And I think that this will pass is so kind of helpful and such an empowering statement, because it allows you to kind of think, okay, there is going to be time after this when I'm not always going to feel like this.
I know. And it was actually one of my friends who taught me that about 2 years ago. And I was having a beauty treatment, basically. And she's a lovely friend. And I said to her, I'm so sorry, I'm getting really panicky just about lying on the beauty bed. And nothing that she was doing. I was just in that place of, I was obviously anxious that day, probably hormones as well. I said, I'm really sorry, but I need to stand up. I'm getting really anxious. And she said, it's okay. Do what you need to do. Like, no judgment. And I was like, and after 5 minutes, I was fine. And she said, it's okay. Remind yourself, Dawn, that you're safe. No one's here to hurt you. And actually, we've all been brought up to ignore these voices and these feelings of anxiety. And we shouldn't ignore them. Acknowledge them. Let them know that you're safe. I'm not going to hurt you. And just let me know when you're ready. I was like, that was just
what
amazing.
An understanding person.
Oh, I know, she's lovely. I know, she's lovely. And it's in my head now. Constantly. And you just never know. People don't realise their kindness sticks with people for the rest of their lives. Just simple words to them. But I love that. And I actually use that all the time now.
Brilliant. Well, I hope our listeners use that as well, because that is
hopefully
such a powerful thing. What a wonderful message. So I've got one more little strategy to share before we finish up today, Dawn, and it's progressive muscle relaxation. Which sounds very fancy, but actually it's quite straightforward. So if you imagine, if you're watching, as you can see me doing this, if you're listening, I want you to imagine me making a fist and sort of like really scrunching kind of those muscles in my hand, and then kind of like relaxing them. So you kind of go through this phase, and you can go through each part of your body. So you can do your hands, your arms, your kind of like shoulders, your feet, your legs. You can kind of go through each bit. I'm loving that you're doing your legs.
I'm doing my buttocks. Did you see me lift up higher?
There we go. And release. And what that does is, again, it links us into that physiological response. So if we talked about it, if that saber-toothed tiger is coming after me and I've got to have tough muscles to either fight or run and leg it, then actually, if my muscles are really floppy, that's again sending that message to my body and my brain, oh, we're safe, because you don't need to run because your muscles are floppy. So it's about creating that real floppiness. So again, when I'm doing this with children, I might say about, let's make our bodies like jelly. let's do that. Let's kind of think about that, or let's, make our bodies, let's just like sink in as if we're kind of like sinking into a massive big cushion. And it's that difference between that tense muscle that you can feel when you are anxious, or you're feeling too much, between that really relaxed feeling. And you can kind of do it. So you might notice, you might have done it in yoga practice, where you kind of go through each part of your body, almost like a body scan, where you're tensing and relaxing and kind of moving up your body. You can do it in whatever order you want.
Yeah, it's lovely that we do that in yoga nidra. Oh, honestly, and it's just the most relaxing thing. I think everyone should do yoga. Like, it should be like on the part of school. On the curriculum. That's the word I was looking for. It'd be good, wouldn't it?
It would. I think anxiety management, or understanding anxiety, would be such a useful thing for so many of our young people today to kind of think about.
It should be like part of the basic education.
It should, yeah. Understanding your own well-being and figuring out what you can do to take control over it.
Yeah, that would be really good.
So hopefully our listeners and watchers have got some useful techniques today. We've talked about lots of things. We've talked about breathing. We've talked about distraction and focus, shifting our focus. We've just talked about progressive muscle relaxation. We've talked about body postures and stance. And we've talked about positive self-talk. I think out of all of them, I love that positive self-talk that you shared with us today, Dawn. I think that's so helpful. If you've heard me say it once on the podcast, you've probably heard me say it 100 times, but it's so important to be kind to yourselves and treat yourself with the same compassion that you would a best friend or a loved one.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So that's us for today. Anything anxiety related, Dawn, you'd like to share before we sign off?
No, not at all. Honestly, doing that breathing then and that muscle thing, I'm just like, I could go to sleep right now. What about you, Freya?
Oh, I think the combination of breathing, muscle relaxation, positive self-talk, all of that combination, I think we should just go and do some of that now.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll go and chill out. And please do some with us as well.
Yes.
So we hope to see you again soon.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.